Yeah. So first of all, and that's a great point as well. But first of all, SMBs are a very large addressable market. So collectively, say half of the U.S. workforce is working for across tens of millions of SMBs, right? So they represent tremendous amount of purchasing power, buying power, in hundreds of billions of dollars. So it's a market obviously worth going after. There's great companies like HubSpot or Intuit or so on, which have build a large business, a lot of value by targeting SMBs. So when you look at the ROI, it goes into looking at the collective, the volume which is available to buy a lot of your product. And the key is, can you make some of the approaches you have, which work for enterprises, work in a more economical way? Can you work them, make at scale where you're not paying as much in terms of customer acquisition cost?
So if you
And if
can
you're able,
execute ABM at half the cost, then you can target accounts, you can target companies that would have half the customer lifetime value effectively.
I think that's a good way to put it, except I'd say probably it'll be not even half. It would have to be 1/10 of the cost in many cases because of the volume you see within SMB.
All right. So, I mean, is that the answer here to how can you execute high cost, typically account-based marketing to SMBs profitably? It's that it's not as high cost. We've reduced the cost on it.
I wouldn't say it's just that, but I think it's a good way to sort of start, which is how can you replicate the effects of ABM, or how can you replicate the impact of what an ABM based approach can be for SMB, but at a margin of that cost. That doesn't mean you just replay everything and make it work for cheap, because I think the audience is different when you're selling to enterprise versus SMB. There are certain inherent differences where the processes, the tactics, the tooling needs to be different as well.
I suppose it might be simpler sometimes to target SMB because you're not having to target as many decision makers. Like there's not as many, you might just have one person that you contact and they make the decision versus a whole chain, a whole group of people that you have to juggle.